The space station floated quietly in the darkness between two worlds. Its metal walls gleamed under the light of distant stars. Inside the station, beings from across the galaxy waited in tense silence. Today was supposed to be the day that changed everything. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked down the long hallway toward the meeting room. Her black diplomatic uniform was clean and pressed. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style. She looked calm, but her heart beat fast. This was the most important day of her career. Elena was here to make peace between humans and the Galactic Confederation. The Confederation was made up of hundreds of alien species. They had ruled this part of space for thousands of years. But now humans were expanding into their territory, and both sides were getting ready for war. The station orbited around a planet called Kepler 442b. This planet belonged to neither humans nor the Confederation. It was the perfect place for peace talks. Elena had traveled for 3 weeks to get here. She carried the hopes of 8 billion humans on Earth and 600 human colonies. As Elena walked, she passed many different alien beings. Some looked almost human, but with different colored skin or strange eyes. Others were completely different. She saw beings that looked like giant insects, others that seemed to be made of living rock, and some that floated in the air like glowing clouds. Most of them stared at her. Elena could feel their eyes following her as she moved. Some looks were curious, others were hostile. She had studied alien cultures for 10 years, but being here in person was different. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Elena reached the main meeting hall. The room was huge, with a high ceiling that showed the stars outside through clear metal. In the center was a round table big enough for 50 beings to sit around it. Representatives from the major Confederation species were already there. The Altarians sat together on one side. They were tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. Their leader, High Counselor Vexon, nodded politely when Elena entered. The Altarians had always been friendly to humans. Across from them sat the hegemony delegates. These beings looked like huge bears covered in silver fur. They were known for being honest but stubborn. Their ambassador, Gorthak the Wise, watched Elena with small, intelligent eyes. But it was the Vorthak delegation that made Elena nervous. The Vorthak were the most powerful military force in the Confederation. They looked similar to humans, but they were bigger and stronger. Their skin was gray and their eyes were solid black. They had ruled this sector of space for 5,000 years. The Vorthak military commander was named Zektar Morthak. He stood near the wall, wearing the red and black uniform of the Vorthak Elite Guard. His hand rested on the weapon at his side. When Elena looked at him, his black eyes filled with something that looked like hate. Elena took her seat at the table. The chair had been made especially for humans. It felt strange to sit among so many alien beings, but she had trained for this moment her whole life. High Counselor Vexon stood up. His forearms moved in a gesture of welcome. "Beings of the galaxy," he said in the common trade language. "Today we gather to discuss the future of our shared space. The human expansion has brought new challenges, but also new opportunities." Elena listened as Vexon explained the situation. Humans had developed a new type of faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Since then, they had spread across the galaxy faster than any species in history. Human colonies now existed on 600 worlds. The problem was that many of these worlds were in areas the Confederation considered their territory. Some alien species felt threatened. They worried that humans wanted to take over everything. "The human delegate will now speak," Vexon said, gesturing to Elena. Elena stood up. She was much smaller than most of the beings in the room, but she spoke with a strong, clear voice. "Thank you, High Counselor," she began. "I come here today carrying a message of peace from the United Earth government and all human colonies. We do not seek war. We do not want to take your worlds or destroy your way of life." She paused and looked around the room. "Humans are explorers by nature. We have always looked to the stars and dreamed of what lies beyond. When we discovered faster-than-light travel, we finally had the chance to make those dreams real." Several alien delegates whispered among themselves. Elena continued, "We understand that our rapid expansion has caused concern. Some of you may think we are trying to build an empire. This is not true. We simply want room to grow and live in peace with our neighbors." From his position by the wall, Zektar made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was not a friendly sound. Elena ignored him and kept talking. "We propose a simple solution. We will recognize all existing Confederation territorial claims. In return, we ask for recognition of our current colonies and the right to settle in unclaimed systems. What about the disputed sectors? Asked Gorthak, the hegemony ambassador. His deep voice rumbled like distant thunder. We are willing to negotiate, Elena said. Perhaps joint colonies or shared mining rights. There are many possibilities if we work together instead of against each other. Zektar stepped forward. His black eyes were fixed on Elena. And if we refuse? He asked. His voice was cold and threatening. Elena met his gaze without fear. Then we will defend our colonies as any species would. But we hope it will not come to that. The humans speak of peace, Zektar said, addressing the room instead of Elena. But they expand like a disease across the galaxy. They take system after system. How long before they decide our worlds are better than theirs? Several delegates nodded. Elena could see that Zektar's words carried weight. We have no interest in your worlds, Elena said firmly. We prefer planets similar to Earth. Most of your species evolved on very different worlds. There is room for all of us in this galaxy. Room for all of us. Zektar's voice rose. The Vorthak have ruled this sector for 5,000 years. We built the trade routes. We keep the peace. And now a species that barely knew fire existed a few centuries ago thinks they can claim equal status? The room fell silent. Elena felt the weight of history pressing down on her. The Vorthak were right about one thing. Humans were newcomers. Most of the species here had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. But Elena also knew something that Zektar did not. Humans had not shown their full capabilities to anyone. The Confederation thought human technology was only slightly better than theirs. They had no idea how wrong they were. Age does not determine right, Elena said quietly. The galaxy is vast enough for old civilizations and new ones to exist together. Zektar's hand moved closer to his weapon. Elena noticed but did not react. She had been trained to stay calm in dangerous situations. High Counselor Vexon sensed the growing tension. Perhaps we should take a break, he suggested. We can continue these discussions in 1 hour. The delegates began to leave the meeting room. Elena gathered her notes and prepared to go to her private quarters. She planned to call Earth and report on the first session. As she walked toward the door, Elena felt eyes watching her. She turned and saw Zektar still standing by the wall. His black gaze followed her every movement. Elena had dealt with hostile aliens before, but something about Zektar was different. In his eyes, she saw not just dislike or fear, but pure hatred. It was the look of someone who would kill if given the chance. She made a mental note to be careful and continued toward her quarters. Elena had no way of knowing that in just a few hours her life would end, and the galaxy would learn what happened when humans were pushed too far. Elena walked through the quiet corridors of the space station. The break had lasted 30 minutes, and she was heading back to the meeting room. The hallways were dimly lit, with soft blue lights that created long shadows on the metal walls. Most of the other delegates had already returned to the main hall. Elena had stayed in her quarters longer than planned. She had been talking to her father on Earth through an encrypted communication channel. Admiral Marcus Vasquez was the head of the Human Defense Fleet, and Elena always asked for his advice before important meetings. Be careful, Elena, her father had said during their call. Our intelligence reports suggest some of the Confederation military leaders are not happy about these peace talks. They see any agreement with us as surrender. Elena had promised to be cautious, but she was not worried. The space station was neutral territory. There were security forces from multiple species watching everything. Nothing bad could happen here. As she turned a corner, Elena realized she had taken a wrong path. This corridor was different from the others. It was narrower and the lights were even dimmer. She must have gotten confused while thinking about the negotiations. Elena stopped and looked around. She could see two possible paths ahead. One led back the way she came, and the other seemed to go toward the main part of the station. She chose the second path, thinking it would be faster. The corridor stretched ahead of her, empty and silent. Elena's footsteps echoed off the metal walls. The sound seemed too loud in the quiet space. She began to feel uncomfortable and decided to turn back. That was when she heard other footsteps behind her. Elena turned around and saw Zektar walking toward her. The Vorthak soldier was no longer wearing his formal diplomatic clothes. Instead, he had on his battle armor, black metal plates that covered his chest and arms. In the dim light, he looked like a shadow come to life. Ambassador Vasquez, Zektar said. His voice was calm, but Elena could hear anger underneath it. "Commander Zektar," Elena replied, trying to keep her own voice steady. "Are you lost too?" "I was trying to find my way back to the meeting room." Zektar smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "I am not lost. I followed you here." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Why?" "Because we need to talk," Zektar said, taking another step closer. Away from the others. Away from the cameras and recording devices. Elena backed up slightly. "If you want to discuss something, we can do it in the meeting room. That is what the negotiations are for." "The negotiations are a joke," Zektar said. His black eyes seemed to burn in the dim light. "Your people think you can just appear in our space and demand equal treatment? You think because you have some new technology, you deserve the same respect as civilizations that have existed for thousands of years. We are not demanding anything," Elena said carefully. "We are asking for a peaceful solution that benefits everyone." Zektar laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "Peaceful solution? Do you know what your peaceful expansion has done to us?" Elena did not answer. She was looking for a way past Zektar, but he was blocking the corridor. "3 of our mining colonies have been abandoned because humans built settlements nearby," Zektar continued. "Your people offered to buy the mining rights for more money than we had ever seen. Our workers left to join human crews. Entire families moved to human worlds. That sounds like trade, not conquest," Elena said. "It is conquest by another name." Zektar's voice rose. "You buy what you cannot take by force. You offer our people better lives on human worlds, and they forget their loyalty to their own species. It is slow, but it is still conquest." Elena began to understand. Zektar was not just angry about territory. He was afraid. The Vorthak had been the dominant power in this region for so long that they did not know how to deal with competition. "Commander," Elena said in a gentle voice, "change is difficult, but it does not have to be destructive. The Vorthak are a proud and strong people. There is a place for you in the new galaxy." "A place you give us?" Zektar's hand moved to his belt. Elena saw the handle of a weapon there, a plasma blade, the traditional weapon of Vorthak warriors. "Not one we give you," Elena said quickly. "One you take for yourselves. Join us as equals. Share in the benefits of human technology. Your people could explore new worlds, discover new resources." "We do not want your technology," Zektar said. "We do not want your new worlds. We want you to go back to your little blue planet and stay there." Elena's heart was beating fast now. She could see the hatred in Zektar's eyes growing stronger. She reached slowly for the emergency communicator on her belt. "Do not move," Zektar said, pulling out his plasma blade. The weapon hummed to life, creating a bright purple energy field around a metal core. "Put your hands where I can see them." Elena raised her hands. "What do you think this will accomplish? If you hurt me, it will only make things worse." "Things are already worse," Zektar said. "War is coming whether we want it or not. Your people will not stop expanding. My people will not surrender their territory. The only question is who strikes first. So you decide to murder a diplomat." "I decide to send a message," Zektar said. "When the humans find your body, they will understand that we are not afraid of them. They will see that the Vorthak still have warriors willing to fight for their people." Elena tried to stay calm, but fear was making it hard to think clearly. "My death will not stop the expansion. It will only make humans angry." "Good," Zektar said. "Let them come in anger. Let them attack us directly instead of this slow invasion they call peaceful settlement. At least then we can fight them honestly." Elena saw that there was no reasoning with him. Zektar had already made his decision. She pressed the hidden emergency button on her belt. It would send a silent signal to station security, but she did not know if help would arrive in time. "You are making a terrible mistake," Elena said. "The mistake was made 50 years ago when your people first left Earth," Zektar replied. "Now it is time to fix it." He raised the plasma blade. Elena could feel the heat from the energy field even from several feet away. She tried to run, but Zektar was faster and stronger. The Vorthak warrior grabbed Elena's arm with his free hand. His grip was like iron. Elena struggled, but she could not break free. "Tell me," Zektar said, bringing the blade closer to her face. "What will your people do when they find you dead? Will they attack immediately? Will they try to negotiate? I am curious to see how humans react to real violence." "They will hunt you down," Elena said, her voice steady despite her fear. "My father is Admiral Marcus Vasquez. He commands the entire human defense fleet. If you kill me, he will not rest until you pay for it." For a moment, Zektar seemed surprised. Then he smiled again. The daughter of their military leader? Even better. This will send an even stronger message. Elena saw the blade coming toward her chest. She tried to twist away, but Zektar's grip was too strong. The plasma blade pierced her uniform and burned through her skin. The pain was intense, like fire spreading through her entire body. Elena fell to the floor. She could see Zektar standing over her, the bloody blade still humming in his hand. Her vision was getting dark around the edges. "Give your father my regards," Zektar said. Elena tried to speak, but no words came out. She felt her life slipping away. Her last thought was of her father, and how angry he would be when he learned what happened. Zektar wiped the blade clean and put it back on his belt. He looked down at Elena's body without emotion. In his mind, he had just struck the first blow in a war that was coming anyway. He was a warrior, and warriors did what was necessary for their people. He walked away quickly, leaving Elena alone in the dim corridor. It would be several minutes before security found her, but by then it would be too late. Zektar did not know that Elena's emergency signal had been received. He did not know that station security cameras had recorded everything, even in the dim light. He did not know that the signal had also been automatically transmitted to human ships in nearby systems. Most importantly, Zektar did not know that humans had been hiding their true military capabilities for 50 years. He thought he had killed the daughter of a fleet commander from a minor species. He had no idea that he had just signed the death warrant for his entire planet. The news traveled faster than light itself. Within minutes of Elena's death, emergency signals raced through hyperspace toward every major human outpost. The signals carried a simple message. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had been murdered during peace negotiations. The killer was identified as Zektar Morthak of the Vorthak military. On Earth, Admiral Marcus Vasquez was in his office at Defense Fleet Headquarters when the message arrived. The old man was reviewing supply reports when his personal communicator began flashing red. Red meant only one thing: a priority alpha emergency. Marcus opened the message and read it twice. Then he sat very still for a long moment, staring at the words on his screen. His daughter's name. The word murdered. The security footage that showed a Vorthak warrior killing Elena in cold blood. Finally, Marcus stood up. His face was like stone, showing no emotion, but anyone who knew him well would have seen the dangerous fire in his eyes. He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me Admiral Chen, Admiral Park, and Admiral Okafor," he said to his assistant. "Emergency meeting in Conference Room 7, and contact President Chen. Tell her we have a priority alpha situation." Marcus walked to the large window behind his desk. Outside, he could see the orbital shipyards where humanity's fleet was built. Hundreds of ships floated in the darkness, from small patrol vessels to massive battleships. Until today, the galaxy had only seen a small fraction of human military power. That was about to change. 20 minutes later, the top commanders of the human defense fleet gathered in the secure conference room. Admiral Chen commanded the first fleet. Admiral Park led the second fleet. Admiral Okafor was in charge of special operations. These four people controlled the most powerful military force in human history. President Chen joined the meeting by secure hologram from her office. She looked tired but alert. Leading 8 billion humans and 600 colonies was not an easy job. "Marcus," President Chen said, "I am sorry about Elena. She was a good diplomat and a good person." Marcus nodded. "Thank you, Madam President. But we are not here to mourn. We are here to decide how humanity responds to this act of war." "War?" Admiral Park looked surprised. "One soldier killed a diplomat. That is murder, not war." "Elena was killed while conducting official negotiations under the protection of Confederation security," Marcus replied. "That makes it an act of war under both human and galactic law." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "What do we know about this Zektar?" Marcus pressed a button, and information appeared on the wall screen. Zektar Morthak, age 43 in human years. Elite guard of the Vorthak military. Decorated veteran of several border conflicts. Currently stationed on the Vorthak homeworld of Vorac Prime. "What does the Confederation government say?" President Chen asked. "They claim it was the action of a rogue individual," Marcus said. "They offered to investigate and punish him according to their laws." "Their laws," Admiral Okafor said with disgust. which means he might get a medal instead of a trial. Marcus nodded. The Vorthak government has refused to surrender Zektar to human justice. They say they will handle the matter internally. President Chen was quiet for a moment. What are our options? We have 3 choices, Marcus said. First, we accept their investigation and hope they actually punish him. Second, we demand they hand him over and use diplomatic pressure to force them. Third, we take direct action. Define direct action, Admiral Chen said. Marcus looked at each person in the room. We go to Vorac Prime and get him ourselves. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Vorac Prime was the homeworld of the Confederation's most powerful military species. It was defended by orbital fortresses and a large fleet. Going there would mean fighting the entire Vorthak military. How many ships would we need? Admiral Park asked. For a surgical strike to capture 1 person? About 50 ships, Marcus said. For a full assault that guarantees success? 300 ships. 300 ships? President Chen looked shocked. That is half our entire fleet. Yes, Madam President. Admiral Okafor spoke carefully. Marcus, I understand your anger. But starting a war over 1 murder, even Elena's murder, might not be the right choice. Marcus turned to face the screen showing President Chen. Madam President, may I speak freely? Always, Marcus. For 50 years we have hidden our true military strength, Marcus said. We have been careful not to frighten other species. We have used diplomacy instead of force. And what has it gotten us? Marcus gestured to the wall screen, which now showed Elena's final moments. They think we are weak. They think they can murder our diplomats and face no real consequences. They are wrong. President Chen studied Marcus's face. She had known him for 30 years since he was a young captain. She had never seen him like this. What exactly are you proposing? She asked. I propose we send the largest fleet in human history to Vorac Prime, Marcus said. We demand they surrender Zektar within 1 hour. If they refuse, we demonstrate what happens when humans are pushed too far. And if they surrender him, Admiral Chen asked, then we take him and leave. No shots fired, no ships destroyed. But they will see our fleet and word will spread across the galaxy. Everyone will know that humanity is not as weak as they thought. And if they refuse? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was cold and hard. Then we show them why we have been so careful to avoid war. Admiral Park looked uncomfortable. Marcus, you are talking about attacking the Vorthak homeworld. There are 8 billion people on that planet. And they protect the man who murdered my daughter, Marcus replied. Elena went there in peace. She offered them partnership and friendship. They answered with a blade in her chest. President Chen closed her eyes. As a leader, she knew that sometimes terrible decisions had to be made. As a human being, she understood Marcus's pain. Elena had been like a daughter to her as well. How long would it take to assemble the fleet? She asked. 6 hours, Marcus said. We have been running readiness exercises for months. Most of our ships are already at staging points near the border. And how long to reach Vorac Prime? 4 hours after we assemble. President Chen looked at the other admirals. Opinions? Admiral Chen spoke first. I think it is a mistake. This could start a war that spreads across the entire galaxy. Admiral Park nodded. I agree. 1 murder does not justify this level of response. Admiral Okafor was different. I disagree with my colleagues. Elena was not just any diplomat. She was our ambassador, carrying the flag of peace. If we let this pass without strong action, every species in the galaxy will think they can attack our people without consequences. President Chen looked back at Marcus. And you? Madam President, I am not asking for a war of conquest. I am asking for justice. If the Confederation will not give us justice through their laws, then we will take it through our strength. President Chen was quiet for a full minute. The weight of 8 billion human lives rested on her decision. She thought about Elena, who had believed that peace was possible between humans and aliens. She thought about the future and what kind of galaxy her children would inherit. Finally, she spoke. Admiral Vasquez, you have permission to assemble the fleet. You have permission to travel to Vorac Prime. You have permission to demand the surrender of Zektar Morthak. Marcus nodded. And if they refuse? President Chen's voice was steady but sad. Then you have permission to show them the consequences of murdering a human diplomat. Marcus stood up. Thank you, Madam President. We will not fail. As the other admirals left the room, President Chen's hologram remained. Marcus, she said quietly. I know Elena was special to you, but do not let grief cloud your judgment. The galaxy is watching what we do next. The galaxy will see justice, Marcus replied, and they will learn that humanity keeps its word, both in peace and in war. The hologram disappeared, leaving Marcus alone in the conference room. He looked once more at the image of his daughter's final moments. Then he closed the file and began preparing for the largest military operation in human history. Within an hour, messages went out to every human fleet commander in the galaxy. The orders were simple. Assemble at Rally Point 7 with all available ships. Priority Alpha. No delays. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of. Space around Rally Point 7 had been empty an hour ago. Now it looked like a metal city floating among the stars. 300 human warships hung in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of a distant sun. The smallest vessels were destroyers, each one 300 meters long and packed with weapons. The largest were battleships that stretched for over a kilometer, their armor thick enough to stop any known weapon. At the center of the formation was the UES Retribution, Admiral Marcus Vasquez's flagship. The massive dreadnought was the most powerful ship ever built by human hands. Its weapons could destroy a city from orbit. Its shields could stop the combined fire of an entire enemy fleet. On the bridge of the Retribution, Marcus stood looking at the tactical display. Each dot of light represented a ship under his command. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. Together they formed a weapon that could break worlds. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Commander Sarah Kim, Marcus's second in command. She was a young woman with short black hair and intelligent eyes. She had served with Marcus for 10 years and she knew him well enough to see the pain he was hiding. Good, Marcus said. Open a channel to the fleet. The communication officer pressed several buttons. Channel open, sir. Marcus activated his personal communicator. Throughout the fleet, his image appeared on every ship's main screen. 300 captains and 50,000 crew members saw his face. Officers and crew of the Human Defense Fleet, Marcus began. His voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute authority. Today, we travel to Vorac Prime to seek justice for the murder of Ambassador Elena Vasquez. He paused, letting his words sink in. Some of you knew Elena personally. Others knew her only by reputation. All of you should know that she died trying to make peace between humans and the Confederation. Marcus's expression hardened. She was killed by a Vorthak warrior named Zektar Morthak. The Confederation government refuses to surrender him to human justice. They think we are too weak to take what we demand. Several captains smiled grimly. They knew something the Confederation did not. We will prove them wrong, Marcus continued. We will go to Vorac Prime. We will demand they surrender Zektar. If they refuse, we will show them why humanity has been careful to avoid war until now. Marcus looked directly into the camera. This is not a mission of conquest. This is a mission of justice. We do not seek to rule the Vorthak or take their worlds. We seek only the man who murdered our ambassador. He straightened up. But if they choose to fight us, we will fight back with everything we have. And when this day is over, the galaxy will understand that attacking human diplomats carries a price too high for anyone to pay. Marcus ended the transmission. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew this could be the most important day in human history. Admiral, the navigation officer called out. All ships are ready for hyperspace jump. Good. Take us to Vorac Prime. The space around the human fleet began to shimmer. One by one, the ships disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the Vorthak homeworld. The journey would take 4 hours. On Vorac Prime, Zektar Morthak sat in his quarters at the main military base. He had returned from the space station 12 hours ago. So far, no one had questioned him about what happened during his mission. Zektar was not worried. He had been careful to avoid the main security cameras when he followed the human diplomat. The corridor where he killed her was rarely used. By the time anyone found her body, he was already back at his post. The human government had demanded his surrender, but Zektar knew his people would never give him up. He was a war hero, a defender of Vorthak honor. The political leaders might make angry speeches, but they would protect him. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Enter, Zektar called. Colonel Marakthor stepped into the room. He was Zektar's commanding officer, an older warrior with many scars from past battles. His expression was serious. Zektar, Colonel Mrakthor said, "We need to talk." "Of course, Colonel. What can I do for you?" Mrakthor sat down across from Zektar. "The humans are coming." Zektar felt a brief moment of fear, but he pushed it away. "Let them come." "How many ships?" 300. Zektar's eyes widened. 300? That is impossible. Our intelligence reports say humans have no more than 50 warships in this entire sector. Our intelligence was wrong, Mrakthor said grimly. They have been hiding their true strength. Satellite scans show a fleet larger than anything we have ever seen. Zektar stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the orbital defense platforms that protected Vorac Prime. Each platform carried enough weapons to destroy a dozen ships. There were 20 platforms around the planet. "We have the orbital defenses," Zektar said. "We have our own fleet. 50 ships, all with experienced crews. The humans may have numbers, but we have experience." Mrakthor shook his head. "The High Command has been studying the human ships. They use technology we do not understand. Their weapons are more powerful than ours. Their shields are stronger. Their ships are faster." "You sound like you want to surrender," Zektar said angrily. "I sound like a soldier who understands reality," Mrakthor replied. "We cannot win a direct battle with 300 human warships." Zektar turned back to face his colonel. "Then what do you suggest?" "The High Command is meeting now to decide. Some want to give you to the humans. Others want to fight. And you?" Mrakthor was quiet for a moment. "I want to protect our people. 8 billion Vorthak live on this world. If we fight the humans and lose, what happens to them?" Zektar felt his anger rising. "So you would betray me to save lives that may never be in danger?" "I would sacrifice one warrior to save 8 billion civilians," Mrakthor said firmly. "That is what a good officer does." Before Zektar could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the base. Both warriors looked up at the ceiling, listening to the pattern of the alarm. 3 long blasts followed by 2 short ones. It was the signal for incoming enemy fleet. "They are here," Mrakthor said. The 2 Vorthak ran to the nearest observation deck. Through the clear metal windows, they could see space above their planet. At first everything looked normal. Then the space began to shimmer. Ships appeared as if they were materializing from nothing. First one, then 10, then dozens. They kept coming until the sky was filled with human warships. The vessels were sleek and dangerous looking, like metal predators floating in the darkness. At the center of the formation was a ship larger than anything the Vorthak had ever built. It was over 1 kilometer long, covered in weapons that could be seen even from the planet's surface. "This had to be the human flagship. By the ancient spirits," Mrakthor whispered. "Look at the size of that fleet." Around the planet, Vorthak defense platforms powered up their weapons. The Vorthak fleet, 50 ships strong, moved to intercept the humans. But even to Zektar's military eyes, it looked like a few minnows challenging a school of sharks. An announcement echoed through the base. "All personnel to battle stations." This is not a drill. All personnel to battle stations. Zektar felt his heart racing. He had wanted this confrontation, but seeing the human fleet made him realize how outmatched his people were. Still, he was a warrior. If the humans wanted a fight, he would give them one. "I need to get to my ship," Zektar said. Mrakthor grabbed his arm. "Wait. The High Command has not decided what to do yet." "They have decided," Zektar said, pointing at the human fleet. "The moment those ships appeared, the decision was made. We fight or we surrender. There is no middle ground." Suddenly, every communication device on the planet activated at once. Televisions, radios, personal communicators, military channels, all of them displayed the same image. It was the face of an old human man in a military uniform. His hair was gray and his eyes were hard as stone. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried a terrible threat. "This is Admiral Marcus Vasquez of the Human Defense Fleet," the man said. "The individual known as Zektar Morthak murdered my daughter while she was conducting peaceful negotiations. Your government has refused to surrender him to human justice." The Admiral paused, and Zektar felt like those cold eyes were looking directly at him through the screen. "You have 1 hour to deliver Zektar Morthak to us. If you refuse, we will consider this an act of war and respond accordingly. I suggest you choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving only silence. Zektar stared at the blank screen, finally understanding what he had done. He had not just killed a diplomat. He had killed the daughter of the human military commander. And now that commander had come for revenge with the largest fleet in human history. The High Command chamber of Vorac Prime was in chaos. 20 of the most powerful Vorac leaders sat around a circular table, shouting at each other in their harsh native language. At the head of the table, Supreme Commander Gralthok the Fierce tried to maintain order. Gralthok was old, even by Vorac standards. He had led their military for 50 years through dozens of successful campaigns. He had never lost a battle, but he had also never faced anything like the human fleet hanging in space above their world. Silence. Gralthok roared, his voice echoing off the stone walls. The other commanders stopped talking and turned to look at him. "We have 40 minutes to make a decision," Gralthok said. "I want to hear every opinion, but one at a time." General Vexka, the youngest member of the High Command, spoke first. "The choice is simple. We give them Zektar and they leave. No one dies, no ships are destroyed." Several other commanders hissed in anger. General Morgan, an old warrior covered in battle scars, stood up. "Give them one of our warriors? Never. We do not surrender our people to aliens, no matter how many ships they bring." "This is not about surrender," Vexka argued. "This is about protecting 8 billion civilians. Zektar killed their diplomat. By our own laws, he committed murder." "He killed an enemy of our people," Morgan shot back. "The humans are invaders. Zektar did what any true warrior would do." Gralthok listened to the arguments for several minutes. He understood both sides. As a military leader, he could not simply hand over one of his soldiers to an enemy. But as a protector of his people, he had to consider what would happen if they refused. "What is the status of our defenses?" Gralthok asked. General Tekmar, who commanded the orbital platforms, answered. 20 defense platforms, all fully operational. Each platform has enough firepower to destroy multiple enemy ships. We also have 50 warships ready for battle. And the human fleet? 300 ships, Tekmar said quietly. All of them larger and more advanced than anything we have seen before. Our analysts estimate they could destroy our entire defense force within an hour. The room fell silent. Every Vorac warrior understood numbers. 50 ships against 300 was not a battle. It was a massacre. "Perhaps we could negotiate," suggested General Vexka. "Offer them something else instead of Zektar. Trade agreements, mining rights, territory." Gralthok shook his head. "You saw the human admiral's face. This is not about politics or territory. This is about family. They want the warrior who killed his daughter, and they will not accept anything else." 20 minutes passed as the commanders debated. Some wanted to fight, believing that Vorac honor was more important than Vorac lives. Others wanted to surrender Zektar, thinking that saving their world was worth the sacrifice of one soldier. Finally, Gralthok called for a vote. "All in favor of surrendering Zektar to the humans?" 7 hands went up. "All in favor of refusing their demand?" 13 hands rose into the air. Gralthok nodded. "The decision is made. We will not surrender one of our warriors to alien justice. Send a message to the human fleet. Tell them we refuse their demand." 10 minutes later, Admiral Marcus Vasquez received the Vorac response on the bridge of the UES Retribution. He read the message twice, then deleted it without showing anyone else. "All ships," Marcus said into his communicator. "The Vorac have refused our demand. Implement Protocol Omega." Throughout the human fleet, officers who had never heard of Protocol Omega suddenly received new orders on their tactical screens. What they read made many of them pause in shock. Protocol Omega was not just an attack plan. It was a complete destruction protocol, designed to eliminate all resistance on a planet within 2 hours. It had been developed years ago as a theoretical exercise. No one had ever expected it to be used. On the UES Retribution, weapons that had never been tested in combat began to power up. Deep in the ship's hull, machines started working that most of the crew did not even know existed. "Admiral," Commander Kim said quietly, "are you sure about this? Protocol Omega will eliminate everything on the planet." Marcus looked at her with cold eyes. "They made their choice, Commander. They chose to protect the man who murdered my daughter. Now they face the consequences." Back on Vorac Prime, Zektar stood on the observation deck watching the human fleet. He could see that something was changing. The ships were moving into new positions, forming a perfect sphere around the planet. Strange energy signatures were building up on their hulls. Colonel Marakthor appeared beside him. "The High Command has refused the human demand," he said. "We are going to fight," Zektar nodded. "Good. It is better to die as warriors than to live as cowards." "Is it?" Marakthor asked. 8 billion people are going to die because you wanted to make a statement. Before Zektar could answer, space around the planet began to change. The human ships were not firing normal weapons. Instead, they were creating something that bent reality itself. Quantum disruptors activated around Vorac Prime. These devices could break apart the basic forces that held matter together. They were weapons that could unmake a planet at the atomic level. The first effect was on the Vorac fleet. 50 warships that had been moving to attack the humans simply stopped existing. They did not explode or burn. They just ceased to be, their atoms scattered across space. Next, the orbital defense platforms began to dissolve. 20 massive structures that had protected Vorac Prime for centuries crumbled into dust in seconds. On the planet's surface, people looked up at the sky and saw their defenses disappearing. Panic spread through the cities as citizens realized they were completely helpless. But the quantum disruptors were just the beginning. The human fleet activated gravitational generators that created artificial black holes around the planet. These black holes were small and controlled, but they began pulling chunks of matter from Vorac Prime's surface. Mountains disappeared into the black holes. Oceans were sucked into the gravitational wells. Cities that had stood for thousands of years vanished as if they had never existed. Zektar watched in horror as his world died around him. Through the observation deck windows, he could see continents breaking apart. The very ground beneath the military base was starting to crack and crumble. "What have I done?" he whispered. Colonel Mrakthor grabbed Zektar by the shoulders. "You wanted a war, warrior. This is what war looks like when you fight an enemy you do not understand." The gravitational weapons were tearing Vorac Prime apart, but they were doing it slowly. The humans wanted the destruction to be visible, to be recorded, to be witnessed by the entire galaxy. Emergency broadcasts went out from Vorac Prime to every world in the Confederation. The messages were brief and desperate. "The humans are destroying our planet. Send help, please send help," but no help was coming. The nearest Confederation fleet was 6 hours away, and by then there would be nothing left to save. In the final minutes, as the planet broke apart completely, Zektar found himself thinking about the human diplomat he had killed. Elena Vasquez had come to make peace. She had offered friendship and cooperation, and he had murdered her because he was afraid of change. Now his entire world was paying the price for his fear and hatred. The last transmission from Vorac Prime was sent by Supreme Commander Gralthok. With his planet dying around him, the old warrior sent a final message to the galaxy. "We chose honor over wisdom. We chose pride over peace. Learn from our mistake." 90 minutes after the human ultimatum expired, Vorac Prime was gone. 8 billion people, including Zektar Morthak, had been reduced to cosmic dust. Where a planet had once orbited its star, only an asteroid field remained. The human fleet transmitted detailed recordings of the destruction to every government in the galaxy. Along with the recordings came a message from Admiral Marcus Vasquez. "Let this serve as notice to all species in the galaxy. Humanity desires peace, and we will honor our agreements, but harm our people, especially our diplomats, under flags of truce, and this is the price you will pay. We have 600 worlds, unlimited resources, and technology you cannot comprehend. Choose your actions wisely." The fleet disappeared into hyperspace as suddenly as it had arrived, leaving behind only the asteroid field that had once been a planet. Within hours, emergency sessions were called in every Confederation government. Species that had considered humans to be primitive newcomers suddenly realized they had been catastrophically wrong. Messages flooded toward Earth from across the galaxy. Some were offers of surrender. Others were desperate pleas for new peace talks. All of them carried the same underlying message. The galaxy had learned what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The peace treaty was signed 3 weeks later. It gave humans everything they had originally requested and more. No species dared to oppose any human demand. Elena Vasquez had died trying to make peace between humans and aliens. Her death had started a war that lasted less than 2 hours and ended with humanity as the dominant power in the galaxy. The galaxy learned many lessons that day. The most important was this: humans preferred to talk, but when they chose to fight, entire worlds could disappear. Thank you for watching, and comment for next part.